Okay, I decided to do one thing. Because of this chair, that squeaks like crazy, and for like 6 or 7 full review attempts already, me wasting 2 hours, I decided to not make a proper detailed review because I didn't even in the first attempts catch quite what I wanted to talk about this phone. I didn't really get over the screen how I feel about it because this phone is so odd in many aspects, and I get kinda why it's a love and hate relationship between so many people. Some say it's a great phone, some say it's a completely bollocks phone, and I get why in both directions, because the build quality definitely is one of the major issues, same as, what was the second thing? Yeah, one thing that I won't even mention now, I will get to that later, but the design actually is quite nice. If you have the in-hand feel, it really feels nice because it actually feels like a slightly bigger S7. But the build quality, if you see things like these bulges here, you can definitely feel them. And this button, for example, is very crooked. It's the one to release the module. You also feel a noticeable gap here. You see some odd line here. You don't really feel it. And the primer just doesn't feel 100% properly, professionally put on. I don't really have a problem with the primer at all because the grip is kind of still okay and it feels still like metal, good enough for me. Fingerprint reader, not the fastest one, but gets the job done, not really an issue for me. The odd thing is that it's not recessed and it's also very small to hit and not that reliable. I would say about on an S7 level. The cameras and all that. Like I said, I won't really go into all the details about the buttons and all that because I think I want to just go into the most important parts. It's not really small, it's not really compact. It still feels great in the hand though. And for example, the sharp edge here isn't something that I bothered at all about. I saw that being complained about in so many reviews. I think it feels great in the hand. But the size, for example, as you can see here, 0.2 inches bigger in terms of diagonal screen size compared to the S7, but so much taller and so much wider. Thickness is absolutely fine, and yes, overall the phone feels great in the hand, but the obvious thing is the build quality. They should have just ditched the modularity thing and built the device on a professional level, which I don't see here because for a device that is so expensive as this one, I don't want to feel so many gaps and bulges and all that. I could see past this for a few weeks, but I'm not quite so sure how well this will hold up over time. Yes, this was a review unit for since ever it was released, and it looks absolutely like new. So maybe it actually will hold up better than expected, but in the end, I'm not quite so sure. Really quick, going into the display, and actually I have to change the home screen. Because, by the way, this is another theme that you can use with the theming engine, but you can only use this on the home launcher. If we see that here, if you select home, because you have also the option for home draw or home screen with draw, and then you have the more typical one with the app draw, and here I can change back to the display. 1440p, a lot of people complain about it not being uniform and have some quality issues. I don't see that. Mine is uniform. The white looks absolutely nicely calibrated. Black is almost on an AMOLED level. Really, really good, deep. Colors slightly boosted, but actually very natural. They seem to do a great job. The viewing angles are also stable enough. The maximum brightness is not top notch, but gets the job fully done. So I was fully pleased with this display. I still consider it to be a flagship level display. You need a little bit more brightness though, because everything below 65 seemed a little bit dull. Just didn't seem bright enough or in your face enough. The contrast though is really good, and the overall experience was absolutely fine. Same as for the sound. Let's get into that one real quick because it is super loud. Once you cup it, the sound is really great because even on its own, it's very, very loud, fully pleasing. One of the loudest speakers out there at the moment, at least for the bottom-facing ones. Even in sound and overall experience, I think it can hold up to some of the front-facing stereo ones because it sounded very rich. If you cup it, you need to cup that, otherwise it will sound a little bit odd. Headphone jack quality, not that great, just a little bit on the weaker side. Headphone jack, yeah, for an earphone, totally fine. For a headphone, not that much. Performance though, to get that really done quickly, I want to kind of rush through this review for some reason, so I can talk a little bit more about the experience. Because the hardware on its own, here, as you can see, the performance, crazy, crazy, crazy smooth. And I give it a total number 1. This is the best overall performing phone out there at the moment, because as you can see, it's one of the pretty much the only one besides the S7 that delivers a 60 frames per second smoothness. It beats everything. It's a lot smoother than the Nexus 6P, HTC 10, even P9. absolutely killer. Multitasking works absolutely perfect. As you can see, scrolling here, even in Google Plus, absolutely fully pleasing. Absolutely love it. I won't really show off any games this time, just to keep the video editing down to a minimum. If you use the setting here in the settings, and as you can see here, the fingerprint reader isn't reliable. I needed like 4 times battery saving. If you go into the game optimizer, you have options for adjust the video resolution. I think it goes down to 1080p and also frame rate. So I would recommend you to go for the first one to adjust the resolution, because I don't think the Snapdragon 820 can really perform a great experience 4014p for gaming. It just doesn't do it good enough. If you use 1080p, it's actually a lot better. Frame rate is something that I wouldn't cap to 30 frames good here. Heating, absolutely fine. I did a 45-minute stress test. It ended at 41 degrees, and I did a video recording test. It's limited to 4K in 5-minute segments. I did that 4 times at a piece, 20 minutes, and it ended with 41 degrees. Absolutely fine. Video was smooth and all good. No overheating or something like that. I am completely pleased. The battery life is one thing that I will talk the last thing about, because, yeah, totally disappointing. Software, I already said it really quick. I think this fingerprint reader felt a little bit sweaty hands. You can pretty much forget it already. You can see the color pattern here, and if you did see the icon pack that I used before, because the theming engine only works on that one, not here, and doesn't really change anything, but you can change these even with the other home screen. But I think it looks very minimalistic, very clean, and actually very professional, so I like that. There's not a whole lot of customization going on in terms of features, so I am fine with that, because it gets done what it has to do. I can adjust things like the quick settings at the top, I can adjust the home buttons or the on-screen buttons, which is totally good enough for me. Updates are coming faster from LG these days. And let's talk about the battery now. It's actually quite good on Wi-Fi, because I got 5.5 hours with a brightness of 65. I just needed that to get a great experience. But then I used it on data after those 2 days on Wi-Fi only, and I was very disappointed. I got at best 3 hours and 50. This was my very best result in mixed use. If it would have been data only, I think I would reach maybe 3 hours. And the normal average on data and Wi-Fi, so a mix of that, was ending at about 3.5 hours maybe, which is not good. Definitely below a flagship average. I blame the small battery a little bit, but it can't be the only reason, because the HTC 10 has just 200 milliamps more and gets so much more battery life. At least maybe 1.5 hours of screen on time on average more. So disappointing here. The great thing is the battery charging time is great with 1 hour and 15. It charges faster than anything else with the smaller battery, of course. This is faster done, but battery is definitely the main weakness. Could be actually the deal breaker, and the camera. Selfies, slightly above S7 level, absolutely fine. Great exposure, nice color, skin tones, color. No, I will finish this review because I did it already way too often. And once we go into low light, it looks absolutely fine. And I kinda lost track again. Should I continue? Yes, I will continue. So, low light, really nice. Picks up a lot of light. Everything all done good. Outside, it looks stunning. Really sharp, picks up a lot of details. The autofocus works very reliable and super fast, along with really fast shutter times, great colors, real natural, exposures really well done. Everything top, can't really praise it more than that. Video quality as well, really smooth. You can record up to 5 minutes of 4K. Really looks stunning, really looks pleasing. We don't have a 60 frames option on 1080p, which is a little bit unfortunate, but it still works really great. The autofocus is pretty much instantly. It's a little bit harsh in terms of exposure changes, but definitely totally fine. So since I'm still a little bit faster than usual, I would like to keep it like that. And I've said this video will be a little bit more unconventional, even for me, because this phone is unconventional as well. To get to the end. Modularity, not a good idea. I get that the main benefit for most people will be the replaceable battery, because you will need that, because the battery life isn't that great. I personally would have wished for a more refined design. They could have easily put in a 3000 milliamp hour battery in that, because of the size, if they would have ditched the modularity thing and built the device actually properly, seamlessly in one piece, because it just doesn't feel like a professionally designed, refined, polished device at the end. It feels, other than that, really great in the hand. The haptics, feedbacks, design overall is great. And if they would have made it a one-piece solution, made it a little bit more compact, a little bit more professional, this would have been already enough with the better battery life to be one of the best, if not best, phones out there on the market. But as it is, the display fully pleasing for me still. The sound absolutely great because very loud and still very rich once you cup it. Performance top number one. It beats pretty much everything and it is noticeably better. Like for example the HTC 10 even than the Huawei P9 and a lot of other flagships. It's super crazy fast, super buttery smooth. Overall the performance more than just fully satisfying and top. I can't praise it more than that. Battery life, like I said, totally disappointing in mixed use, at least for me. I have the same issue on my S7, not being that great on data, but even then I can get about an hour more of screen time, and this hour can be crucial in some ways. So if you are a heavy user, you won't be happy with that. If you are a casual user and don't really need too much battery life, then it is still a viable option, because I don't definitely want to trash this phone, because the camera is also beautiful overall and I really like this phone. And after 2 days, until I haven't used the phone on data, I said I definitely prefer it over the HTC 10 for so many reasons. It feels personally still better in the hand. If you look past the build quality issues, the display for me was also better. Sound was better of the speaker, not of the headphone jack for sure. Performance and everything is top notch. But in the end, and this is something that I've talked in my recent reviews, it is not good enough if you have like 5 highlights and then crap out on another few things. It has to be overall flawless, and this is what I'm just not seeing here on the LG G5. Build quality is a flaw, not maybe big enough to be a deal breaker, but the battery life very well could be, because I don't want to switch batteries throughout the day. And it would get me through a day, don't get me wrong, it would get me through a day, but a lot of people won't, because I see so many people who say they need 4, 5 or even 6 hours of screen time. This is something you will just not get here. And I don't want to bash this phone any more than I did, because I still absolutely like it, but I can't give it my full recommendation, mostly due to the battery life. It wouldn't have been for that, and maybe people have better battery life. Maybe I had a little bit of more issues on data like I have on my S7, which I don't have on so many other phones, but it's really hard to express what I think of this device without saying anything wrong, because the experience was absolutely great. And I can definitely see why a few people completely hate this phone, because for a few people it's just not acceptable to pay that much money to get this kind of build quality, because that's just not a flagship level. That's not really acceptable on a flagship level. If you see this as a nicely built phone with a great design and can look up past these issues and past the battery life, it is actually one of the most underrated phones of this year, because the experience once again is top notch, but it's not as consistent as on some other phones. The overall package is a little bit flawed. There are just phones that can provide the same level of display, audio, performance, or very close to that, but just don't crap out on build quality and battery life. So I'm starting to repeat myself, but I think you get the point. And even though my video was more unconventional than before and worse than the previous takes that I did, I think I got one thing through. I really like the phone and I still think it's underrated. It doesn't deserve the hate, but I can see why a few people just think bad about it. I personally, I would have really liked to have loved it even more so, because there are so many great things about it, but in the end I think it was a wrong decision to go for the modules. It should have been kind of a Flex, G-Flex line, experiment line, and they should have not made a half-ass attempt with the modules, because I don't think this will be really a selling point in the future for this phone. So I think that's it. I will just leave that like it is, because this review was already all enough. So if you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you want to subscribe to the channel, I would definitely welcome that, and I wish you a nice day and hopefully a few more normal reviews in the future, because I had to do a kind of out of the box review for this out of the box device. Okay, until next time. Bye.